China. Ancient land, awesome, subtle, evasive to the Western eye. In places unchanged for centuries, limitless plains, green mountains, connected by endless roads. At the turn of the century, there being no word in Chinese for the automobile, they were known as fire cars. The first and only motorsports event held in China was the long-distance trial from Beijing to Paris. To attempt this fantastic distance in 1907 was considered sheer madness. There were no maps and hazards of every sort. 2 continents, 10,000 miles, and 60 days later, the victor arrived in Paris, Prince Scipio Borghese. Since his achievement, there have been no further motorsports in China. And now, the great nation, China, has cast aside the bamboo curtain, and the welcome mat is out. 3 years of intense negotiations and preparation have led to official backing for a rally the length of China. From Hong Kong, through the Rice Bowl of the South, ascending the mountains that Marco Polo once trod, crossing the mighty rivers of the Yangtze at Wuhan and the Yellow River at Pinyin, then across the wheat plains of the north, through the Great Wall, finishing in Beijing's famous Tiananmen Square. 3,500 kilometers in 4 days. Problems are many. There are no filling stations, no shortcuts for service vehicles to catch up, and only 2 signposts in English between Hong Kong and Beijing.
For this special stage, it is quite long because it is over 90 kilometers.
The route will cross provinces not open to the tourist. Militia and police have to be alerted, as well as the inhabitants, some of whom have never seen a European face. Even the recce is not without drama. Chinese roads are to be treated with respect. On roads such as these, the first rally cars managed 8 miles to the gallon and 45 miles per hour. Today's rally car does 6 miles to the gallon and has a maximum speed of 155 miles per hour. The structure of such a vehicle is designed as much for the protection of the driver as for the support of its 4-wheel drive system. The 5-cylinder power plant of this Audi Quattro A2 is turbocharged, producing 5 times the power of the average family saloon. In matters of detail, the Audi Quattro exists in another world. Beautifully machined, painstakingly crafted, the whole represents a series of intricate systems, the summit of automotive high-tech. There are no concessions to quality. Every detail is given almost surgical attention. The task of preparing 2 such vehicles falls to Andy Dawson and his team. One car will be driven by Hannu Mikkola, twice world champion. The other by Dawson himself. Team manager, engineer, driver, a huge responsibility. Did he have any doubts?
If I knew more about China, I'd be very happy. I think the challenge of China is that we're going into effectively the unknown.
Chinese roads are busy, but not with motor traffic. Saloon cars are rare beasts indeed, and those that there are certainly not sports cars. This Shanghai is a copy of the American Plymouth. Even rarer is the Chinese Rolls, the red flag, whose influence is obviously Russian. But king of the road is the truck. Basically unchanged in design since the days of the Burma Road. Despite their lack of sophistication, Chinese motor vehicles have to cope with some of the world's most difficult road conditions. So it would be a mistake to underestimate their drivers. The Chinese Motorsports Association chose 4 police driving instructors and sent them to England. To Andy Dawson falls the task of teaching them the basics of rallying.
Good. It's very good. The Chinese drivers are coming over here, they don't know what a rally is, they don't know anything about it. The problem I've got is to try and teach them what a rally is in terms of how to book in at a time control, plus how to drive a car. The language problems are going to be good. I mean, the first thing we've got to do is to teach them to say, stop. If I want them to stop, they've got to know what that word means. I've then got to teach them what right is, what left is, I've got to teach them what accelerate is, what brake is. The first part of the teaching is going to have to be a language part. What I don't want to have happen is something like this. I don't want them 3 miles into a special stage to roll a car over into a ditch, bang.
Good, yes, yes, keep it going. Accelerate, accelerate, turn, handbrake. Left, right, steady.
It may be very nice to sit a long way from the steering wheel, racing driver style, with your arms very, very straight, because then you can just wind lock on, wind lock off. But with a rally driver, he needs more than half a turn of steering lock. What he needs to do is to come over and then put more lock on. If you're too far from the wheel, you can't do it.
Dawson makes it all look like child's play. But even a seasoned driver can have his thoughtful moments.
You've just got to feel for that fine balance. I've got to concentrate. I've got to think down that road ahead. I've got to forget about everything around me. If you come to a point and the road surface changes and you haven't judged it right, it can be all over in a batting of an eyelid.
Hong Kong, the Monaco of the Orient. An astonishing blend of the West and East. Legendary for its typhoons and taipans. By day, a powerhouse of activity, highly charged with the pursuit of money. By night, the city changes by magic into a ravishing temptress, full of mystery and glamour, pleasure and promise, at a price. The 3-5 team arrives by air with their second car and 2 tons of spares as accompanied baggage. In a trial run held at Deepwater Bay, the 2 competition cars and course car try their power. Within seconds, disaster strikes. Dawson's engine runs its bearings due to an accident in transit. Somewhere in Europe, a replacement unit must be found. For all other competitors, it was time for scrutineering in Kowloon. The factory teams are there. Nissan, Toyota of Japan, Opel of Germany. As are the famous names in rallying. Valdegard of Sweden, Shekameta of Kenya. Drivers of a dozen nations prepare to try their skill against the world's champion, Hannu Mikkola, spearhead of the 3-5 team. Mikkola is about to be confronted by a new generation of drivers. Both Weber and Kankunen have only recently successfully challenged the champion.
Oh, it's very tough. Toyota, we know how good they are. Nissan, Opel, they are all here. So.
It's very exciting for me. It's the first time so far away, and it's a very exciting country. I think it will be very nice.
The competition will be good. I mean, we have 2 artists, 2 Opel and Toyota and that. And according to the organizers, the planning of the road, if it works, it will be fantastic.
Every night is Saturday night in Hong Kong. And while the city plays, mechanics grimly waiting.
We're standing here now and the rally's about to start tomorrow morning. We've got less than 12 hours to fit a new engine into the car. The situation is, this is impossible, really.
The engine arrives, having cleared customs in 12 minutes. It's midnight, less than 10 hours to the start. Five minutes to 0 hour, and the start of the 3-5 Hong Kong to Beijing rally. Pandemonium rules. For the cars, the spectators, the local heroes, the press, and the frantic organizers. The Finn, Mykonos, starts his engine to launch the Quattro into a human sea. He is followed by Valdegard and Cancun in their Toyotas. Factory prototypes compete with standard models, works teams with private entrants. There is even a second-hand Mini in this rally. Shekhar Mehta in his Nissan is off. And there is Andy Dawson. Spectator or contestant? Incredibly, his car has passed the scrutineering with minutes to spare. His engine has yet to be run in, but all seems well. "30 more competitors, including the Chinese drivers, with their immaculate hand signals, head off for the Chinese border, 40 kilometers away. The service crews are already deep into China at their first position. Normally, frontier formalities take up to 5 hours. Today, the red tape is dispensed with, and papers are cleared in seconds. The months of forward planning pay off. With less delay than a fuel stop, and proudly possessing their Chinese driving licenses, the competitors pass through into Shenzhen for their first encounter with the Chinese people.
Entry to China was unbelievable. Suddenly there's just rows and rows and rows of people. It went on for kilometre after kilometre. We come into villages and there's banners across the road. There's one lovely banner. It said, "May you all win the race."
Day 1. On the opening gravel stages of Taitan, young Erwin Weber leads the field in a fiery display of sideways motoring. Mikola fights back on stage 2, being pressed hard by the Toyota, driven by his fellow Finn, Kankunen. The old fox, Valdegard, lies in wait, pacing himself with care. Behind them, cars are already beginning to drop out. Day 2. While spectators have time to spare, the morning finds support vehicles racing to keep up with their teams. Some of these mechanics have had no sleep for 24 hours. Stage 6 is held up by the all-important fuel tankers falling behind, causing a 3-hour delay. In a dramatic display of downhill racing, Weber again beats Mikola, this time by 11 seconds, demonstrating the ability that won him the Safari Rally. Other competitors aren't quite so fortunate. The Chinese drivers keep a cool head and are not drawn into the battle in front of them. 14 hours later, Wuhan, halfway point of the rally, which is now running 4.5 hours behind schedule. Mikola's Quattro is leading, but close behind are the Opel and Nissan cars. Drivers stagger out, exhausted, and for the moment, too tired to move. Navigators compare notes, bathed in the limelight of the world's press. And tomorrow, it would all begin again. Day 3, the Parc Fermé at Wuhan. Overnight, the service and petrol vehicles have caught up. However, all but one of the 8 hand pumps have broken down. Service crews are at the limit of endurance. This straight line rally is taking its toll. Everyone is doing their utmost to keep the rally going. To Phil Taylor of the Hong Kong AA falls the key decision.
Well, we refuse to give up. We sat trying to think of answers to problems, and we've come up with an answer which I'm hoping will work, because if we can make the rest of it look reasonably attractive, then I think we've still got it going.
The patient Chinese accept the 4.5-hour delay, and the crowds continue to build. At last, Hannu Mikkola departs at the head of a caravan as exotic as those of Marco Polo. There are 32 road racing machines and 89 service vehicles bound for Beijing. The Chinese drivers almost steal the event by themselves, their textbook hand signals merely indicating delight. Every province declared a public holiday on the day the rally passed, and Wuhan was certainly no exception. It seems the entire city of 4 million people have turned out to watch. After the last car departs, Wuhan reverts to bicycles. With over 300 kilometers of special stages cancelled, it isn't until the banks of the Yellow River are reached on the morning of day 4 that competition is resumed. On top of the dikes, the drivers at last have the chance to unleash the full power of their cars. The surface is slippery, the slightest mistake fatal. Dawson sets the fastest time of the day, reaching speeds in excess of 200 kilometers per hour. Mikola's lead is still comfortable, though not unassailable. Nonetheless, he still finds time to take the odd photograph.
So, will we have lunch here, Hannu? Or?
No, I think I will.
Skipping lunch.
Yes, I will have a dinner instead.
Oh, this soup should be nice. I
Yeah,
think.
all right. Looks a little bit primitive for me.
Just before dawn on the final day of the rally, and the faithful spectators watch the cars as they head for the most famous landmark in China, the Great Wall, and the finishing line beyond. Mikola has retained his lead throughout the night, slightly improving his position over Torp, whose factory Nissan is lying in a fine second place. The Chinese drivers arrive. They are within 50 kilometers of home, their homes, and well placed in their class. A remarkable personal achievement, a milestone for Chinese motorsport. Some 60 kilometers beyond the wall and still early in the morning, almost as an anticlimax, world champion Hannu Mikkola quietly coasts across the finishing line. Another 60 kilometers further south is Beijing, capital of the Chinese Republic, where an expectant crowd is gathering in Tiananmen Square to welcome the triumphant procession of competitors. First, Mikkola in the Audi Quattro. Second, Torp in a Nissan. Third, Weber in the Opel. Fourth, Dawson in the second Quattro. Fifth, Mehta in the second Nissan. In the square of heavenly peace, the rally ends. All who took part shared in the occasion. The drivers, the support crews, the organizers and sponsors, not forgetting some of the estimated 9 million spectators, making it the biggest live audience in history.
There can't have been more people watching any event in the world at any time. This has got to be #1 in history.
For the drivers, it is all over. And so, as tourists, they return to the Great Wall for a final visit. Standing on this wonder of the world, might they not assume that they too have perhaps added a little to the history of China? A small contribution to the story of a remarkable and fascinating people. A race apart.